Hey folks, Dave Temple here. As you may have heard, there have been a number of sponsors on this show over the past year, and I'm so grateful for every one of them who believed enough in the show to keep the lights on. That said, I am making available new sponsorships for the remainder of October and the entire month of November. And whether you're an author, an editor, a publishing company, or you're just someone who enjoys this show and you'd like to help support us, and you just happen to have a product or service you'd like the Thriller audience to know about, this would be a great time to advertise on this show. Look, truth be told, this is a one-man show. It was when we started 3.5 years ago and remains that way today. Yes, there are expenses for running the show on a monthly basis. There are hosting costs and audio, video, editing software costs, some ad marketing costs, and well, they add up. So as tough as it can be asking for your help, I think we're good enough friends that I can do just that, right? And while I'm not a fan of holding out a 10-cup asking for help, I do feel confident, very confident in saying if you like the show and would like to help support it, perhaps you just happen to have a book or 3 you'd like to advertise. And if you need some testimonials, I've got a few people who have told me they've had great success advertising on the Thriller Zone. In fact, I'd point you to the Story Factory, Steve Stratton, Matt Scott, or our newest sponsor, DJ Williams. Yeah, in fact, he told me just the other day he's seeing serious spikes in book sales since advertising with me. So give it some thought and reach out to me at thethrillerzone@gmail.com, and we can make something powerful happen for you. Okay, now let's get back to the show. Hello and welcome to the 201st episode of The Thriller Zone. I'm your host, David Temple, and if you're wondering why I'm sporting this dandy cap, Kohl Ranch, Texas, makes you kind of think of someone like Taylor Moore, doesn't it, huh? Cold Trail is the book, Taylor Moore is the author, and we are so excited to have him here. So please put your hands together, kick back and relax, or if you're driving, pay attention to the road, 10 and 2. Either way, it's Taylor Moore on the Thriller Zone right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here in Season 7, I am so excited once again to welcome my friend Taylor Moore. Howdy do, Taylor.
David, it's great to be back, man. I missed you.
I missed you. You know, we were talking, I guess it was Ricochet was our last chit-chat. Mm-hmm. And now, look at this little bad boy, Cold Trail. We're going to get into this. I always say this. We're going to get into it. I have lots to talk about. I have some inside scoop I want to share with my listeners. You know, you just delivered once again. Big surprise there.
Good. Glad to hear it.
I want to start off, though, before we get to Cold Trail. How was BoucherCon this year there in Nash Vegas?
BoucherCon was fantastic. It's always a good time. I got to see a lot of good friends, got to see some good panels, got to be on a panel. It's always fun. I love BoucherCon. I usually try to go to Thriller Fest, at least one or the other. I missed Thriller Fest this year, so I made BoucherCon. But BoucherCon's the fun conference. You know, Thriller Fest is work. You know, when I get there, I'm doing meetings, I'm doing all these things, and BoucherCon is the one where everybody hangs out at the bar and just like catches up. And so now I had a blast.
That's cool. You know, Chris Hottie and I are every time we go to these conferences, we always say the same thing. You know, the real action takes place at the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely true. That's a true statement.
How's Diana, Bennett, and it's Maddie, I believe it is. Yeah. How's the summer been for everybody?
Summer's been great. Kids are back at school. Poor Bennett, if you hear coughing in the background, he poor guy got sick, and so he's home today. He's going to miss his first tennis tournament. So he's a little disappointed about that. But everybody's doing great, man. Family's great. I'm doing great. The summer was nice. We went to Disney World. We did. We kind of relaxed a little bit, but now we're back in the groove of school.
Since you brought that up, let's take 30 seconds and drill down on the Disney World land adventure, because I did Disneyland Anaheim with my 2 grandkids. You got to save up. You got to save up financially, and you got to save up on energy reserves, because that'll wear you out.
So Disney World, we went to the Florida one, and it's a beating in pretty much every way, shape, or form. But the thing is, and we'd heard so many horror stories. So financially, you know, we saved up. We were kind of prepared. Although we tried to do, in places where you can save, we tried to save. So we did do that. The physical beating of just the crowds, the heat, everything that you hear about. The funny thing is we had so over prepared ourselves for that all of those things happened. It was a beating, but because we had made it so worse in our heads and we told the kids like it's gonna be the Bataan Death March every day and you're gonna be, I mean, this is gonna be miserable. You're gonna be falling out and we're gonna have a bayonet, pushing you along. They had prepared themselves for the worst, and so we were pleasantly surprised. So yes, it did rain. Yes, it was hot, and yes, the crowds were bad, but it was nowhere near that what we had sort of built up on our minds. So when it was all said and done, we came away from Disney World depressed when we got home. We were ready to go back again. It was that much fun. So to anybody who is like kind of put it off like we had for those reasons, again, just save up, be prepared for that, and then just prepare yourself for the worst. And whenever you experience not as bad as you make it, it's actually pretty wonderful.
Yeah. I would say if you were to ask me 3 best pieces of advice, number 1, wear comfortable shoes, the most comfortable shoes you got.
Yeah.
Number 2, hydrate. Take water with you wherever you can.
Yep.
And number 3, I'm a big fan of snacks, little power bars, etc. Because you burn some calories, Taylor.
Oh, the 3 things you said would be my top 3 things to tell people. And if you can do all those things, because the snacks, I'm not a big snack guy, but you need them, man. It is sort of the Bataan Death March. You are sort of trudging along, and you need all that energy. And sometimes the way it works, and they have the app now where you kind of register for rides. I know a lot of people are unfamiliar with that, but that's how you do it now. So you might be like, okay, we need to do this now. That means we're going to be eating lunch an hour and a half from now, but we're all starving. It's noon. So you get your power bars out and you just do it, and you go and you got your water, and you're okay. You're in good shape.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan of this is not an endorsement, big fan of the Cliff Bars.
Yeah.
Very natural. Keep you going. All right. Let's get to it because I know you're a busy guy. Yeah. Cold Trail. Now, I hope this is not talking out of school. And if it is, hold up your hand and I will edit it out. But a mutual friend of ours and a very good friend of yours and a new close friend of mine, Ryan Steck, said, is it true that you both were not fighting for the same book title, but that maybe you had it first and he was thinking about his next book to be Cold Trail? Is any truth to that?
I think he mentioned that one time. We talked here and there, and I think he had mentioned that was on the list. Now, for authors will tell you, I remember the first book that I ever had. My first editor said, "I want you to give me 25 to 30 potential titles." So there are so many working titles, depending on your editor, that might go. Now, I'll tell you this: that happened with Don Bentley when he came out with this Tom Clancy. What was it? It wasn't Flashback. It was, oh gosh. Do you see any of that? There was one.
Weapons Grade is up on my shelf. That's
not Weapons Grade. It was one of the other ones, and I'm just blanking on the name that I had it. And so I sent it to Don the other day because they had sent me the book with that title on it, and I can't believe I'm blanking on what it is. It'll come to me, but I sent that to him the other day because I just found it on my phone, and when Don came out with his a few months before, I sent it to my editor, and he's like, "No, we got to change it." So those things happen, We just that's just one of those things. There's only so many titles, only so many catchy things, particularly for these like military thrillers. And I'm glad I got Cold Trail before Ryan. So.
Ryan is such a solid dude. I mean, besides being Mr. Real Book Spy, he's one of the funniest, most loving guys I've ever met. I have so much fun hanging out with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And a prolific writer, too.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's just run down just a couple of quick things. I'm not going to read them, but you got a who's who on the back of your book singing the praises of Garrett Kohl's series. I mean, Jack Carr, he says, packs a punch. Andrews and Wilson, a masterpiece. Nelson DeMille, he gives readers an inside glimpse into a world of covert operations that few novelists can match. Had to read the whole thing. Nick Petrie, our mutual pal, thrilling tale of family and global brinkmanship set on the high plains of West Texas. That's a nice phrase. Mark Cameron, the real deal, says of you.
Yeah.
Mark Rainey, I don't know who Mark Rainey is. I've heard about him,
Some little known,
but he's
yeah.
I think he's writing romance. Anyway, he
Yeah,
goes
that sounds
high
right.
octane action as well as genuine Texas lore. And we finish up with Brad Taylor. I love the fact that Brad says it's a riveting thriller with a family in crisis at the core. It's my kind of book.
Yeah, having those endorsements is just amazing, particularly from the caliber of writers there. Nelson DeMille, you mentioned. Nelson was a hero for me, growing up as a kid reading his books, and so to have an endorsement on your book, it's just next level cool. The Charm School, the way that happened was kind of interesting. I was doing an interview with Barbara Peters, The Poison Pen, and she asked, what kind of did it for you? Who was the author? What was the book? And I said, hands down, Nelson DeMille, The Charm School. I said, that's my all-time favorite book. And so she said, well, Nelson's coming out here. Why don't you come interview him? And so she invited me out to come interview him in Scottsdale. And I did. And we got to go out and have dinner and get to know Nelson. And he is just a class act, gentleman, coolest guy, most humble guy you'll ever meet. And so it was an honor to meet him, but it's an honor to have his name on my books too.
A couple things there to unpack. When you run across a childhood hero and the guy or gal ends up being cool and approachable and kind and gracious, I will do backflips for you. And I'm so gracious, so grateful for that, because we got to be careful sometimes. I'm going to go on a soapbox here for 10 seconds. Remember where you came from. We're all in this together. We can all, high tides lift all boats or something like that. So
Yeah.
I love hearing stuff like that, Taylor.
Well, it's kind of funny because we talk about it as with other author friends. Is be careful when you meet your heroes thing, and so when you meet one that doesn't let you down, it's pretty special.
Yeah. Because I've met a few that have let me down.
Me too. Me too. They make for great stories, but yeah, you walk away pretty deflated. And
Well, I made plenty of notes because, when I'm reading this thing, I get up into it and I have to stop and make all my notes in the back, and had so much fun with this book. So I want to drill down to it. I want to jump into Garrett Kohl. I want to see what's next, Cold Trail. Now, I have to say, before I let you tell me what the book is about, you have done it again.
okay, good. Good to hear.
You've brought just the right mixture of the Big West, some of that special intelligence of the CIA that we love and that has taught you so many things, enough of danger to satisfy all us thriller writers. Plus, and I love this, you get an added little dash of romance, or shall I say love story. And when you do that, when you make all the mechanics happen and then you infiltrate a little bit of love story, I'm like, dude, I am all in.
Well, good. I always worry. I always feel like there should be a little more love story, but my wife will tell you that's not my forte. So I can do that. That's about it. What's in the book is about as good as I can do. So I'm glad it was enough to really, that it hit the mark for you.
Well, it's so interesting because, as you know, I'm reading between 2 and 3 books a week, so I can't remember all of the books I read. However, when I got to the end of this, and this is no spoiler alert, I'll be very careful, but when I got at the end of this, I'm like, oh, that's right. So-and-so happened right there in Ricochet. That was the perfect tee up to what happened here. So if you are like I and love the little twist of love story in your action thriller, then you're going to be so pleased.
Yeah, I think readers of the fans of the series are gonna like this book because there's some resolution into some things that have built up over 3 books, and then of course leaves a little bit more.
Matter of fact, let's do this. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about what Garrett Kohl has been up to with Taylor Moore and his book Cold Trail, right here on the Thriller Zone. Stay with us. And we are back on the Thriller Zone. I'm your host, David Temple. This handsome gentleman is Taylor Moore, and the book we're talking about is Cold Trail. Garrett Kohl is up to it again.
Yeah, David, this is I think, again, for fans of the series, or, of course, anyone new coming in, I think this is going to be a particular fun one. So, each book takes place about 9 months after the next one. And so you kind of go through this, like, a few days in each book, and then it leads up to something new. So each book is a standalone, but But for those that have been reading, and I always try not to give too much away, Garrett has found himself in a bit of financial difficulty. Some good things have happened, some bad things have happened, but that financial difficulty that kind of builds up to the story has led him up to where he's now working in the energy industry, and things are going pretty well. Although he owes a pretty big debt, and there's a situation that comes along that could potentially set up his family, the ranch, everybody for life. And so that's kind of how the book lays out. But as anybody who's read any of the other books, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And it's and no different in Cold Trail, because as soon as things are looking pretty good and things are going well, boom, we get an explosion. And I won't give too much away there, but something that looks like an accident, happens near the ranch. Some people are hurt, including some good friends of his, and basically that sends him on the hunt. That sends him on the trail of looking for what exactly happened here. And although some people think it's an accident, others suspect foul play. And there ends up getting some different strange bedfellows that come together along the way in this story, where everybody is casting blame. Everybody has sort of an iron in the fire, and it's up to Garrett, as usual, to sort of parse through it all, get through all the rhetoric, the craziness, and actually get down to like what crime took place, who is at the heart of this, and to basically shut it down. So we follow Garrett on another high plains adventure. And as usual, like we talked about before, it's not just the story of him sort of tracking the bad guy. There's family involved. There's the kids. There's a love interest. There's all these things that are sort of going on simultaneously. And there's an interesting backstory that starts with book one, and it plays out overseas in this book. Usually I keep everything pretty local, but there's a story from starting with book one that had to be resolved. And so we pick up this story overseas, and it's not through Garrett's eyes, but it's through a character, Kim Manning, that everybody knows and readers really love, and you're going to see it through her eyes. And so there's a lot of stuff in this book. For people that like action adventure, it's got all that, but it's also got the heart too. And it's got, for people that have read the books, their backstories, their struggles, the things that have dogged them throughout the series. And there's going to be some resolution. There's going to be more heartbreak. There's going to be sadness. But there's going to be some resolution on all of these issues. And so I think this was a fun book to write, because I finally got to sort of put that cherry on top.
What I love about this book, and you said that with heart, when you can, and it goes back to the romance, but when you can give me a story with heart, real fandom comes from characters, if you ask me. It's anybody can have a gun and shoot people and blow things up and have car wrecks and blah, blah, blah. But when you can have that kind of adventure and you still have woven a wonderful piece of heart through the story, that's when all 8 cylinders, or 12 or 10 or whichever, how many in your vehicle, you got them all firing. That's one of the things I love about your work. And on top of that, and I'm going to shut up here in a second, is the fact that each one of your books, I could pick it up, read it, all good. Pick up the next one, read it, all good. However, if you do tend to stay with Taylor, then you're going to find out, they do kind of link together like a loose little chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the funny thing, and it's all by design, and that was the heart of the stories that part of it was something that I really, before I even wrote down Range, I did my research, and I would read these books. Like you said, there's a lot of good books out, and they're fun to read. I ended up kind of coming away not remembering them because I didn't care that much about the characters. It was a fun story, but I didn't care. And so I wanted people to really have a vested interest, to really love these characters and want to see it through. Again, by design, there's that part, there's that inner turmoil, that struggle, those things, that emotional part of the characters. On really every character, you're going to follow it in some form or fashion, and they're going to develop, they're going to grow in every book. So a character that may start out bad may end up being good, or good to bad, or whatever. But I wanted people to see that sort of full spectrum of who these people are. And what do I tell people? It's almost like Easter eggs. In each book, I usually pick a character that I may mention the name once, and you may think, okay, that person sort of came and went. Well, they may be a major character in the next book, or the next book, and the next book. So there's a character I mentioned one time in Downrange, and by book 4, that guy's a major character. So to me, it's fun to sort of plant that out and sort of build it out. So So again, you can read each book. You could pick them up, and I've had people read, the third one, and then go back to the first one, and no harm, no foul. They're like, oh, okay, that's how this person came to be here, that kind of a thing. But people
Yeah.
that really have started from the beginning love the fact that you get to see the characters grow.
Folks who know you well know you're a former CIA intelligence officer. And I found myself asking that, I'm like, what do you suppose one thing that Taylor misses from those days? Because you have gone from a pretty intense, wide, broad field of work, and then you go into a single, solitary, quiet world of writing. And so I found myself asking, I'm like, what do you think Taylor misses most during those days of the CIA? And conversely, what do you not miss?
I think the things that I really miss the most what I really miss is knowing what's really going on. When you worked in Intel, you look at a global event, and for us now, we just all we get is the news, and the news is basically worthless. I hate to say it, but I mean it's just it's one person's perspective that usually isn't correct. And when I see a news article, I go, "You're missing this part. You're missing this part. What about this? Why didn't you ask this?" And when you're in the intel world, you have to ask those questions because there's going to be a principal, there's going to be a general, there's going to be somebody that's not going to let you just get away with telling part of the story or telling it in a certain way. You have to tell it with accuracy. And you do a lot of analysis too. If you're on the analysis side, but your analysis has to be sound. You can't sort of wish a story into existence or wish a reasoning behind something into existence because that's what you believe. If you try to do that in the intel world, you're going to be burned. Nobody's going to trust you. So you have to be as accurate as you can be. So for me, I really miss getting to know, knowing what's happening in the world without sort of I like seeing the raw intel, if you will, and making my own judgment.
Yeah, there you go. I want Taylor is saying I want the raw intel. I want the inside scoop. It's so funny you should say that because as we watch the news every day, my wife and I are big news fans. We watch it and we go, how much of what we're hearing right here is real truth? How much of it is nuanced with partial truth? How much of it is just influenced by opinion, and how much of it is just, well, not really quite on the mark at all? So you made me, you're echoing a sentiment.
Yeah, I think lean on the side of not accurate. I hate to say that, but again, there's just so many things when I see a news story. Sometimes I've gotten where I hardly read the news anymore. I'll just kind of do an overview because it's so you wouldn't get away with what they get away with in the intel world because somebody would be right there going, well, what about this? Well, what's your source? Well, you just have one source that sounds like it's a biased source. Well, then how do you know it's true? You know what I mean? There's people there, and you got to have go, well, sir, ma'am, this is why we think this is the case. We don't know. We have about a 50-50 opinion. You've got to. There's all that nuance, and you put that into the assessment, or again, sometimes it's just if you're doing a straight up report, it's just the raw intel. So you can take that source for what it's worth, but some of it's pretty good depending on what source you're using. Some of it's really good. Yeah.
I would imagine. And it made me think of this. And I know this is an old reference, and a lot of my audience may not follow this, but if you're a big fan of really good writing and great films and superb craftsmanship and acting, then you would know All the President's Men. And it's a film that my wife and I have seen probably conservatively about 30 times since we've been together in 7-8 years. And when you were saying this, a scene flashed back to my mind in All the President's Men. They're going, yeah, okay, Bradley's saying, okay, well, you got that point, but where's your source? Well, we've got the source. Well, do you have a source and then a source? Well, no, but we got this. Well, then you don't have enough source. Yeah. You can't just say, well, this guy says it. You got to have this guy, this gal, this guy, and this guy. Yeah. And that, I think we've kind of dropped the ball on that true blue information that we need to have to confirm multiple points.
Well, it's even worse than that if you think about it, because now you hear about an unidentified source or anonymous source, and it doesn't mean that the source isn't real, but come on, right? Like anybody can just say anything. I mean,
Right.
so it's and I get that there's a whistleblower situation, but I feel like in the old days they used to take that very seriously. Now I think it's just, somebody's out at the bar, they hear some gossip, and they're like running, front page, or I guess they don't do front page anymore, but online
Right.
it goes, and it's just, I think that's terrible. I think it's terrible.
What part of Texas are you in?
The Texas Panhandle, Amarillo, so up in
Okay.
the high plains, yeah.
How much of that hearty outdoor atmosphere do you share with Garrett? So, in other words, do you enjoy the great outdoors and the weather changes and hunting season and all that as much as Garrett, so that it's a real reflection of one another?
Yeah, so I grew up on a farm and ranch, kind of like Garrett, although I grew up more in central Texas, so it was a whole different, setting and all that. But that's what I grew up. I grew up outdoors every day, and I grew up working on a farm, on tractors. I grew up, riding horses, working cattle, doing all those things that Garrett would have done, working in the hayfields and all those things. So yeah, I grew up with that. Now that got a little bit different as I got older because, of course, working at Intel, that was its own thing. But coming up here, when I got out of Intel, I was working in the oil and gas business as a landman. And I just saw, Taylor Sheridan has a new series called Landman. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for this, but it looks
No.
amazing. It's Billy Bob Thornton and Demi Moore and all these great, John Hamm, and I think it's going to be fantastic. And it's all going to be set in West Texas. And so I actually sent it to the trailer to my editor. I said, "This is like basically Cold Trail. I mean, this is if I could make a trailer for my book, this would be it." So really fun. So when I was doing that, I was again back outdoors. I was on these big ranches. I was out in the blizzards. I was out in the sun and the heat and the wind and the you name it. And I was out there and a little bit more of a dangerous atmosphere. So I actually miss that because now again I'm back in my office. You can see here I am. This is my world. I'm either writing here or writing in a coffee shop somewhere, and so it's not as wild and crazy and wild and woolly as Garrett's world. But yeah, I do love that. I do miss that a little bit.
Well, folks, two things. I want to say this real quick. We were talking in the green room before we came on about how good this young man looks, and we were talking. And I said, "Oh, well, I'm much older than you," and he goes, "No, there's no possible way." And then I share my number, and he's like, "Oh, wow!" And we're talking about how good we look, and I'm like, for a guy who grew up outdoors in the sun and the harsh elements, you look dang handsome, Mr. Moore. Can I just say that?
If you tell my dermatologist that as he's burning off, skin cancers and everything, that might go a long way for me. So he's a little mad at me for all the damage I've done, but thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. And speaking of your writing space, there's a little feature I'm going to bring back called Show Us Your Writing Space. So if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of seconds, because I'm one of those geeks that likes to just see where the sausage is made. So
Yeah,
give me a
absolutely.
little time. Yeah, you don't have to you don't have to unwrap everything and unhook all the wires, but just kind of give me a little peek of what
Well,
the
there's not
Taylor
a lot to
Moore.
see. I've got to tell you, it's nothing that fancy. But you see behind me, every good author has his books back there, and some of these are just some of my favorite books. Some of them are sources that I use. If you see some of my, I'm doing up here on the very
Uh-huh.
top next to the cowboy hat and the cowboy on his horse. Those are all signed editions, and so like I guess probably my most prized possession is I have a first edition, first printing signed of Lonesome Dove, signed by Larry McMurtry, and that was my all-time favorite book, my favorite author. So I've got that and all the Barry Bender series signed by McMurtry. So that was a gift, and that was a gift for my wedding from a close family friend, and so I've got a book signed by Lyndon Johnson, President Johnson, and one signed by George Bush, and yeah. So those are some of my prized possessions. But the thing that people find most interesting, I'll kind of just veer you over if that's okay, slowly, is that
Yeah.
bulletin board. Can you see it? I know it might be a little darked
Oh
out
yeah.
over there. That thing, and you probably can't see much about it. So I'll just veer you right back. People love that. I started when I started downrange. It's just sort of an idea board or I don't know if you know what it is. There's things that would hit me. I'd see an image. I'd be like, that looks like Garrett Kohl. That looks like the gun he would use. That looks like the horse he would ride. That things like that. So or that would be an actor that would play him in a series. And so I just started putting all that up there just for my own, I don't know, just to sort of activate my mind and my imagination. And then over time, there's things that, just little sayings that I would write, things that help me, like writing is rewriting. And oh gosh, just by patience, I break what is hard. The obstacle is the way. Just little things that would help me when times get tough, when you're in the writing process, that, get up there and be like, oh yeah, writing is rewriting. So everybody knows there's the first draft, the second, third, and the millionth draft that you get to, and people that don't do this for a living, you don't think about it, but man, that's
Yeah.
that's what we do here. So
See, that's kind of inside baseball stuff that I like because it just gives us an inside peek of your world. Everybody thinks that, oh, they put certain people on a pedestal, and then you realize, well, we're all sitting in our own little rooms, banging out our own little stories with our inspiration on the wall, and I just find that fun. So thank you for doing that for us.
yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, my pleasure.
I think, and there's a question, and it's very obvious, but I got to ask it anyway. As I'm thinking about your wife, Diana, wanting to send greetings to you and your family, and then I'm reading, of course, with Lacey and some of that love story we mentioned earlier. Is Diana emphasis, or rather inspiration for your character, Lacey?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways she is. My wife is a very strong woman, kind of like Lacey, and they have a lot of the same attributes. And people have asked me that a lot. But I think a lot of the women in my life, from my mom to my sister to my wife, everybody is an influence in the characters that you write. And that's been one of the greatest compliments that I've had on the books, is I've had people tell me you write strong female characters, and I love that. It's a huge compliment from Kim to Lacey. And if you notice, they each have different skill sets. Lacey, she's just a country girl, right? I mean, she lives in her town, does her thing. Kim is, of course, the CIA operations officer, so she has that different skill set. But they're both strong in their own way, and that's the one thing that I really I really always appreciate that compliment when I get it. But yeah, I think my wife has been a huge influence, and in a lot of ways on the characters. And then she tells me what she likes, and she tells me what she doesn't like, even more importantly. And so like and in a way that only a spouse can do, right? And so
Right.
yeah.
As we start to wrap up, I'm gonna run through. I've got a little litany of questions. It's not quite rapid fire questions like have been known to do. It's just a couple of things that I am curious, and I know my writers are probably curious. And the very first one, real simple. Do you have any rituals when you start writing? Something that you do every single time. It might be you wear a lucky pair of shoes, you wear a cardigan, you have a cup of hot fill in the blank ready. I mean, anything that kind of sets you in that mood?
Nothing particular. You mentioned the shoes. I guess I'll show you what I have on. I mean, I'm in Texas. I'm in the high plains. I should have some really cool cowboy boots, right?
Yeah.
I've got my Crocs, and not only do I have Crocs, but they have, I mean, they're dirty, I can see, but they have these little charms on them that my kids, they all love that. So the kids for Christmas bought me these Croc charms, and I tease my kids because I've been wearing these Crocs for years because I'm a dad, right? So, I wear something comfortable. Well, Crocs are cool now. Kids are wearing these Crocs, and so I have convinced them that I made it cool again. I'm the one that brought Crocs back. So I've got my comfortable Crocs on. That's what I wear.
That should be a T-shirt. Taylor brought Crocs back. And it's funny because I do have another feature called Show Us Your Shoes. So you did a double whammy for us in this episode.
Okay.
Yeah, no, all good. All right. So now let's do this. I want to know your best solution for getting out of what I call a writing jam. You'll hear people call it a writer's block. I don't really believe in writer's block per se. I think it's more of a jam than a block. A block kind of feels to me like solid and I can't get through it, whereas a jam is like, oh, I had a little speed bump. It just threw me off. Hang on, work through it. Do you have anything? You have a best solution for getting out of those? If you even hit them?
No, I do, and it's interesting you mentioned, because that's one of the most common questions you get is like, do you get writer's block or what do you do? And I said that the thing, kind of like you, I said, I don't really believe in writer's block. I mean, I can always write something. The blocks that I get into is, what should I write? Which avenue should I go? Where should I take it? Now there are days, I'll be honest with you, I'm just not feeling it, and I think every writer will tell you there's some days it's going to happen. It's some days that it isn't. I've gotten a little bit better about if I just feel it's not going to happen, I'm just not in the zone, then I'll try to go do something else and just make use of my time elsewhere. But I used to just sit there and like kind of pound and go, like, why is this not working? And that's just, it's totally useless. But 4 books in, I'm kind of like, eh. I think sometimes the bigger block that I get in is what direction I want to go in. And this current book that I'm writing now, I was a little bit in a jam, so what I did is I just sent an email to my agent and I said, "Hey, let's set up a phone call because I can go several ways, and whatever way will it's not just I wouldn't bother my agent for like a minor deviation or variation, but this is
Sure.
where it will sit in the bookstore, if you know what I mean. This could take it
Hmm.
to to different parts of a bookstore. So I think this is a major pivot. So sometimes you just got to seek out advice. Talking to friends is a good thing. And then if somebody's sitting there, maybe you're not an author, you're just trying this, and you think, man, I just I have writer's block. I can't seem to write. Then just write anyway. Write stuff that's bad because somehow there's that brain fingers connection. If you just start
Yeah.
writing, things will start popping up, and I think you'll be surprised of what comes out. And even I do that. Sometimes I go, I don't really know what to do, and I just start a chapter and go, I didn't see that coming,
Yeah.
and oh, this
Yeah.
he's gonna go there, that kind of thing. And so anyhow, that's what I would
Yeah.
suggest.
If I really feel shut down, I'll just get up and go change my environment. I'll go for a walk around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'll run over to the beach and just walk a real quick couple of miles because once that wind and sea is around me, it just allows me to go, okay, relax, dude. You're just freezing up about something. Let it go. And when I come back, boom, I'm right back into it. Was there something you always feared when you were just starting out as a writer that maybe now you look back and go, well, that was nothing?
Yeah, there actually is. Doing these things, I sort of feared.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not a person that I don't mind being on stage. I don't mind public speaking. It's not that. It was just I think it was something very new to me, and so. But I got the best advice, and I hope he doesn't mind me using or telling it. But it was Mike Madden. I don't know if you remember Mike Madden. He writes for the Cussler series and used to write for the Tom Clancy and one of the things that Mike told me, he said, you're going to do these things, you're going to do these interviews, and you're going to think, oh, I've got to get everything out about the book, and tell everybody about it and get these great hooks. He said, just be likable, just be a person that people want to hang out with, and that took a lot of pressure off because I did. I think I was at that point where I got this limited time. I just got to tell everybody about everything, and that generally comes up in conversation, but for the most part, he said just kind of just be yourself and just hang and just have a good time. And when I decided I'm just going to have a good time, then these things became a lot of fun for me.
you know what? I could not have said it better. And I've always felt like I can kind of pride myself on the fact that when you get on my podcast, I just want you to have fun. I want you to relax and just have fun. We do silly shit. Sometimes we do really important stuff. It gets serious, it gets silly. And, having done radio for 25 years, you had to be able to think really fast on your feet, be able to absorb a lot of information. But at the end of the day, you're just meeting somebody new and you just want to say, hey, Taylor, let's just hang out, get caught up. That's why I like to start off the show with getting caught up and it just kind of ease into it. So I think that's great advice. All right, 2 more things before I let you get back to writing, which is your number one
Yeah.
job. I want to know if you could go back in time. I love this. You're going to go back to your 12-year-old self, sitting on a riverbank somewhere, fishing, or maybe out hunting with your dad or riding a horse or whatever. If you could go back to that 12-year-old self and say, hey, this is what you should know. This is what I know now. What would you tell him?
I think it would be don't take life too seriously. I think we all, I mean, and to this day I do it. And this morning I was telling myself, don't take things so seriously. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy the fun because I think even doing what I'm doing now professionally as a writer, it's kind of a dream, but even now there's the drudgery part of it. And I think to myself, why? Why is it? why is it drudge? I mean, I don't know, or like I got to go here, I got to go there, I got to do these different like media events or book events or whatever. And not that I mind doing it, but I have young kids, and so that it's just one more thing. But I thought, sometimes you just got to remind yourself, don't take it too serious. Just show up, just have fun, just look at it as an adventure. You're off doing something else, and everything will take care of itself somehow. I think that's the problem. We know when we're younger, you're like, I got to do this, I got to make these grades, I got to do this. You're always building, but you're never enjoying the moment when you're there. I mean, you are, but I
Right.
think there were times, if I could go back, I would say, don't be so serious, just enjoy the moment. And so that'd
Yeah.
be the advice I'd give. And I'm giving it to myself
That,
now. Taylor, enjoy the moment.
yeah, and that is so good. And as I was telling a very good friend of mine on the podcast recently, and I won't belabor this point, but you checked in on me, so I appreciate it. But I was diagnosed with prostate cancer last year. This time, had an operation, have gone through radiation, hormone therapy, all this stuff. And what I learned in this past year is that life is short, it's fragile. You just got to keep pushing, and you start thinking differently when you have the C word involved in your life. You think about just what's important now. What's the most important? And to me, it's family, wife and family, and my all of my family, and then connecting with people like you and just enjoying the ride
Yeah.
and just having fun.
And it's funny you say that, because I've thought to myself, I'm like, well, I've thought like, well, what if you had cancer? Your whole perspective would change. But I don't want to get cancer. I don't want it to have to change my perspective, because we already know it, right? It's just, we
Yeah,
know that, but I'm sure it does. I'm sure that's one of those things that happens, and it stills that moment where you're going, yeah, I do appreciate the little thing, just being here. And I think everybody struggles with a little bit. I'm sure some people don't,
yeah,
but yeah, just being present, being in the moment, and just enjoying where you are.
yeah. It has spawned for me a nonfiction book so that I can share my story. But yeah, you realize that time is precious. All right, as we wrap, as well as I do, we always finish the show with the best writing advice. What's that best piece of writing advice from Taylor Moore?
I think tell me if this is the one that I said, because I give multiple pieces of advice, but I usually say, if you want to be a published author, start and finish a book. And I told someone, people say, well, I want to, I'm writing, what should I do? And I said, whether or not you want to publish this book, it doesn't matter. Start and finish a book. So get to the end. If you get to the end of that book and you go, man, this is the worst piece of garbage the world has ever seen, throw in the trash. That's okay. You started and finished something. So many people start books but never finish it, and that's really where it all comes together. I mean, that's proving your mettle right there. If you can like actually bring everything together in a meaningful way, and even if you bring it together and it's not in a meaningful way, just do it, put that aside, and then start again, because there's something mental about not just starting all these books but never finishing. If you can finish that book and then move on, it'll be a huge thing. And I tell people this too, but I always do this caveat, and I say, if writing is just some sort of catharsis, if you just enjoy it, it's just fun for you, you don't care if you ever get published, you don't care if you ever pass it on to your kids or whatever. If this is just fun, write a million books and never finish them, if that's just for fun. But if you really
Yeah.
think, I want to do this, I want to be a published author, whether it's indie press or big publisher, or just something that you can just put out for your kids, start and finish a book.
So good. So good. Well, and with this, we wrap. Folks, if you want to know more, if you want to get a copy of Cold Trail, which you will if you're a Garrett Kohl fan like I am, you're going to go to TaylorMooreBooks.com, which we're going to show on the screen. Taylor, dude, as always, it is always a genuine pleasure. You bring such a ray of light to the show. I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt. I mean, you're a good guy. You're positive. You're uplifting. You're a big supporter of the writing community, and they all love you. And I, as always, wish you huge success, and thank you for joining us.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I look forward to next year.
Your front row seat.